All right, and we're here with Joe Huber. Joe is a 220 pounder with Dublin Jerome, also a football player. Joe, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Hey, listen, I wanted to get reaction from local Central District wrestlers on just basically what they were thinking when they've heard that there wasn't going to be a state tournament, or at least it's postponed at this point. How'd you feel when you heard the news?
When I heard the news, I was sitting with a few of my friends who are actually also wrestlers, and I was at my lunch table, and I was just incredibly disappointed. I remember just putting my head down because I worked so hard all season to get to this point, and then it was just taken away from me.
So tell me a little bit about the disappointment, which I get, but mainly worked hard all season. Walk us through what that means to you. Let's do it this way. When did you start wrestling? How old were you?
I wrestled in third grade for a year, and then I didn't wrestle again until seventh grade when my brother joined. So he was pretty much the reason that I got into it.
Okay, so qualifying. This is your first time being able to qualify for state, right?
Yes.
And not to take that for granted, but why don't you tell everybody what you were like, how you've grown since your freshman year to being a state qualifier at 220 pounds in 2020?
So freshman year, I actually only had 3 wins. I was put into the varsity lineup because we didn't have. I was actually a 145 pounder freshman year, and then sophomore year, I won about 7 matches, so it was a little bit more growth. But that year, I decided to put in a lot more work, and I gained some weight, and I was a 195 pounder my junior year. I actually didn't make it to districts. I was an alternate that year. But then that summer, my goal was to make it to states. So I really put in the work in the off season and lifted with the football team. I lifted in the morning like every single day, and then eventually the opportunity came. And no one really saw me coming this year because I wasn't even a district qualifier last year.
Well, I got to tell you from experience in the Central District, 220 was just a meat grinder this year. So some perspective for people that might be listening, doesn't realize that you did kind of come out of nowhere. I know you might not feel that way, but definitely from the outsider's perspective, that was the case.
Yeah, 220 was really tough this year, from what I've heard.
So walk us through the mindset, looking back from your freshman year till now, somebody that has 3 wins their freshman year to being a state qualifier in one of the toughest wrestling states in the nation. What does somebody have to do? You said hard work. Well, that's what everybody says. What does somebody have to do in order to do that?
Well, you really just gotta get into the mindset with your goal in mind. I'll just set my alarm every day. Even if you don't feel like getting up, you just gotta do it. And you gotta go to off-season clubs, and you can't just expect to wrestle 3 months out of the year and improve a lot. So I joined the Columbus Wrestling Club and did that in the spring and did some Greco, and it really made me a better wrestler.
So off-season work is key. I think that's true of any sport, which is a good transition into football. You are a football player. That's your first passion. In fact, you have committed to the University of Cincinnati to play football. Is that right?
Yes.
So, which congratulations, by the way. It's a great school. Happens to be a school where there's a 3-time state champ as your head football coach. So I'm sure he understands having a wrestling background. But why don't you tell us what you feel like wrestling has done for you on the gridiron as a football player.
Well, wrestling is probably one of the toughest sports out there. Just the conditioning involved, and you go through a lot of pain, just like constantly taking people down and getting taken down. But you just got to get back up, and that really correlates with football because, you know, you just got to drive through, and if it hurts, you got to finish the match. Same with wrestling, same with football, you just got to push through, and, you know.
So back to the state tournament, not to go back to the point of disappointment. It sounds like, you know, you get to move on and obviously live for another day, so to speak, by playing football. No wrestling, of course, at the University of Cincinnati, at least at this point. But if the tournament comes back, if they decide to go ahead and do a tournament in a few weeks from now or a month from now or what are you most looking forward to? What were you most looking forward to when you qualified for the state tournament at 220 pounds?
Just being able to wrestle at a high level and just step out on the mat and just all the excitement. If it comes, I've been trying to stay at 220 all season, and when I found out that it might have been postponed, I was kind of caught with the decision of either bulking up, because I'm going to be on the O-line, so I have to bulk up for football, or continue to stay on weight in case I have to wrestle at 220 again. So it's kind of a tough decision.
Yeah, absolutely, and quite frankly, it's on everybody's mind. Wrestling isn't like any other sport where you could just kind of reconvene, go back to maybe do a few practices and end up on a court. When you're on a wrestling mat, you're taking into the physical cutting weight and making sure you're on weight, I should say, but also the mental aspect of it's mano y mano. It's you versus him. So I'll leave with this. Tell somebody that maybe a fellow classmate of yours, or maybe somebody that might be thinking about joining the wrestling team as a freshman, and somebody that might have only 3 victories in their future next season. Encourage that person. Tell that person what they're going to get out of this sport that you got out of this sport.
If you only have a few wins, like if you're younger, just stick with it because it gets better. It honestly does. I was wrestling guys that were like a lot more built than me, and I was just this little 145 pounder. But if you put in the work, good things will come. You just got to believe in it.
That's great, Joe. I appreciate it. Okay, great to talk to you today. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I think that's it.
Okay, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right, thank you.